Matt Rhule is back on social media, and some are saying it's better than ever. We discuss next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome. It is Wednesday, and I apologize for this episode being a little bit later than normal. I was traveling back from Chicago this morning, so it threw off our normal time, and here we are. So a little late afternoon.
How did it go, by the way? How was the travel? How was the trip overall?
The travel was easy. The trip was good. I'm happy to not be a jinx for Creighton basketball of any kind. Maybe listeners of this podcast are disappointed that I didn't turn into a jinx for Creighton basketball.
No.
But everything turned out pretty well. So no, it was.
I got to hear some of it on while in the car on Tuesday night. Connor was were you courtside? Did they let you courtside at the Wintrust Arena?
Yeah. It was a good broadcast spot for sure.
Going solo on the play-by-play. No color commentator. I was curious how it was going to go. I was a little anxious for you. I was listening and you know the game got off to like this like ugly start,
choppy,
and but then things started to really come together for Creighton. It was a good broadcast. Good job.
Thank you, Mitch. I appreciate that. So we'll try to roll that momentum right into this podcast. Before the game started on Tuesday, I was checking Twitter. And I saw Matt Rhule had tweeted. I go, what's going on here? And there was a video, and it was Matt Rhule at Big Ten Media Days last year talking about the Big Ten, and then Paul Finebaum. Remember that whole thing? We probably did. I don't know, Mitch, 3 episodes about the Matt Rhule, Paul Finebaum thing. And on the heels of the Big Ten winning the national championship, Matt Rhule wanted to remind people that was the case yet again. I thought it was great. It was all done in good fun. And I don't know, like that's what the off season's for, right?
Mm-hmm. So what he did is he posted the original video of himself talking at Big Ten Media Days about how the Big Ten should get, what did he say? Four teams in the CFP, which ended up being prophetic. He said, what an amazing 2024 college football season. Congrats to Ohio State and Ryan Day. Looking forward to another exciting year of football in 2025 with everyone who makes this game so special, like my friend Paul Finebaum. And of course he tagged Paul Finebaum. So
nice.
It's not a subtweet. And then there was a cutaway to something that said moments later, with a video of Mike Greenberg of ESPN asking Paul Finebaum this week if the Big Ten owns college football, to which Finebaum replied, the answer is yes. So a mic drop for Matt Rhule at the end of the college football season. I want to know how long this has been in his drafts.
Yeah, I think he's probably been cooking it up a little bit. I'm not, once again, I will repeat, I'm not going into the waters of Big Ten cheering. I'm not going to, after Purdue beats Mississippi State or something like that, I'm not going to say B1G or whatever it is. Not doing it. But I did enjoy the tweet, and like I said, I thought it was in pretty good fun, and I think it's a more of a window into, you know, Matt Rhule. I mean, how many times have we talked about this on this podcast, Mitch? Like Matt Rhule having a really good understanding of what is being said about him, and like understanding, you know, when the right time is to punch in. Remember when he did the tweet after Trev left of the God made a farmer thing? Like, he's just really good timing on all this. Like, so I think he was probably sitting on that, or maybe it was spur of the moment, but he seems to have a pretty good feel for when to chime in.
Sense of awareness, I think, is a good way to put it. So yeah, I'd be curious how. Not that we're gonna make this too serious, because it's not a serious thing. But I wonder how it arose, because he had somebody there to. I don't think he edited the video together of
I don't
the
think so.
of the July ESPN clip with the one in January, and I think much more than pounding the Big Ten drum, this was about him having some fun and being able to poke Finebaum back a little bit after Paul got after him. But for people who think that this is like serious and there's like some feud between Matt Rhule and Paul Finebaum, like this is what Finebaum, he of course absolutely wants and goes after, the kinds of things that happened in July when he told Matt Rhule, stay in your lane, Matt Rhule. You're speaking out of place here. The SEC is the king of college football. Don't go talking about the Big Ten, whatever it was.
He also said, like in the clip, he said, get to a bowl game. And then they did. They went to a bowl game. So I don't know.
I'm sure the Pinstripe Bowl really shut him up. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
got him good.
Yeah, we got you there. So it's been a long time. It's been a long time, Connor, since we've heard from Matt Rhule. By Rhule standards, it feels like a whole offseason has passed. He hasn't done an interview or really anything public since the Pinstripe Bowl on December 28th. And not that this speaking up on social media he's tweeted a couple of times since then, about the normal like grind of recruiting, or when they get a transfer, maybe something comes out, but nothing that's like where he's interacting with college football fans. So he'll be in public tonight, Wednesday night, for the Outland Banquet. Troy Dannon, Nebraska's athletic director, is going to be there. I don't know that this is going to be an opportunity to get much from Matt Rhule. He kind of comes in and there's a social hour where like 1 million people are getting, like 500 people are going to try to shake his hand and get 30 seconds or 15 seconds with the head coach. And it's funny because Kelvin Banks from Texas is the Outland winner. And I always feel like at this event that these Outland winners must come in here and just like wonder what exactly they walked into, because they're like the star of the show is like this random 5th-year senior from Nebraska. Like Isaac Gifford's going to be there and everyone's going to want to chat with him, while Kelvin Banks is like over here, like hanging out with the people from the Greater Omaha Sports Committee, or the organizers of the event. And of course, Matt Rhule and Troy Dannon, Tom Osborne, Charlie McBride is in town for this thing. They're all the stars of the show. But hey, Kelvin Banks, good football player, gonna be a first-round draft pick here coming up in the spring.
Yeah, I often think the same thing, because Omaha is a home to another national award that's gaining some notoriety now, in the Jet Award, and that banquet is usually in April. And last year, Zachariah Branch won it, and I remember thinking, "Whoa!" Like, I mean, that's a pretty well-known player, and I don't think he was there. I don't remember him being there last year.
Mm-hmm.
And
mm-hmm.
the event still went on as it normally does. Johnny Rodgers gets to do his thing, and everybody wants to talk about Nebraska football, which is really funny to me.
Kind of the Johnny Rodgers Award, I think, annually. I mean, it's named the Jet Award, so it's a chance for Johnny to be Johnny. Johnny was at the Supernovas, the Omaha Supernovas game on Sunday down at CHI, and he had courtside seats and got introduced in front of the crowd. And it was cool to see Johnny. And he, I'm sure he did the pose many times. He didn't do the pose. He didn't do the pose for the camera when he was introduced. But that was maybe just an oversight. Probably they need to have him back so he can do that. But I mean, Johnny Rodgers shows up somewhere, he's going to pose for 100 pictures, and most of those he'll be doing the Heisman pose. Absolutely. But back to Matt Rhule. What have you thought of his silence here over the last month? Just is it going to be a little quieter off season for the head coach? We haven't had any chasing 3. We've not had any big splashes. He's not been appearing on national radio programs. It's just been a little more low key, Matt Rhule, since the season ended.
Yeah, I don't think he's the kind of guy who like wants to artificially drum stuff up just because they've fallen out of the conversation for a minute. You know, like I think this is a natural time right after the national championship for everybody to sort of take a step back. But like but Rhule is the kind of guy where if he does have an opportunity to say something, and the next time we talk to him, whether it's in the next couple weeks or before spring ball, even like whatever it is, there will be something impactful for him to say, because a lot will have changed by the next time we talk. So I don't think it's like, one of those things where I just got to purposely keep things quiet because we got to keep things quiet. I think he picks his spots really well. And as far as what kind of off season it'll be, I don't know. Like there's a lot that has to be sorted out. I just think globally in college football, and there's a lot of changes coming that way. And Rhule definitely will have opinions on all of those things. So I would imagine there's one or two more of these like Finebaum-esque sort of dust ups before the season starts.
Yeah. I do want to say one thing, and we'll get to this after the break, about Rhule's MO in the public space and how that might be changing as he goes into year 3. Let's come back and we'll get to that. Okay, right now, I want to tell you about Prize Picks, because Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. It's got more than 5 million active users. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is you pick more or less on a 2 to 6 player stat projection, and then you count your winnings. So right now, you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct selections. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy, so you stay and play even if one of your players gets hurt. So here's how it works. You got the AFC and the NFC championship games, big weekend coming up, big Sunday coming up in the NFL. Pick some players. Maybe it's a quarterback, maybe it's a wide receiver, a running back. However the system is set up, you're going to get a number for the player that you pick. You pick more or less. It's that easy. And then you set a lineup of players that you pick. And then you see if you win. You probably will. Download the Prize Picks apps today. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's Locked On College on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. Okay, welcome back to a Wednesday edition of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. I'm Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone is here with me. We are coming at you with an afternoon premiere of this Wednesday edition. Some things that we are working on the rest of the week. Thursday, it's going to be Thursday. We're going to do it. We're going to do the Nebraska Football Award Show, our version of it, after the awards are handed out at the Outland Banquet tonight. We know who won the awards coming up tonight. It's Ty Robinson. It's Ramir Johnson for his inspirational career. Ty Robinson won the award for basically just the outstanding player on this roster. And then Isaac Gifford and John Bullock are also receiving awards tonight, Wednesday, at the Outland Banquet. We'll pick a few more unique, creative other awards, and then we'll hand those out on our Thursday show. Friday, we're going to have a mailbag to finish the week. So get your questions in for the Locked On Nebraska mailbag. You can send them to us at lockedonneb@gmail.com or hit us on Twitter. So I'll finish that last conversation with this. We were discussing Matt Rhule's his MO, kind of his stance on doing things publicly and being transparent here as he goes into year 3 of his tenure at Nebraska. And you've heard him mention this in passing in the first couple of years, like in referencing the social stuff that the Chasing 3 that Nebraska did last year, the documentary, like letting people behind the scenes, kind of like a Hard Knocks version of Nebraska football. I think he wants to move away from some of this. Now, it has to be a balance because you've got a product that people want to want to get all of the information about that they can, and you have a team of people who can provide outstanding content. So they're going to still have to do some things, but I think that a big part of what he wanted to do in year one and even into year two, definitely into year two, was really just show people everything that he and his staff and this program were all about, and what they would be all about, what they stood for at Nebraska. And now I think you may see, and hopefully not too much, but you may see the curtain close a bit on how much they let people in and behind the scenes, and just make it more about fans having a reason to want to get behind this team because they're winning football games. I think that's probably been the plan all along for Matt Rhule.
Yeah, that's interesting though. I mean, you could definitely do both. You could win and let people in, but we're not saying that he's starting to shut people out or anything like that. Like he's always been really good with media and will continue to do that, and is generally pretty available. He certainly does more press conferences than a lot of his predecessors. That's for sure. Right. And doesn't necessarily have to be poked to do them. Right. So I think he likes doing that kind of stuff. I think you could do both. But it is definitely one thing in the first couple of years to say, all right, this is what we are. This is what we're going to be. Let's open things up. Let's show people that. And now it's okay. That's great. We've shown, we've seen inside. That's still what we are. But let's win some football games. And then when you do that and you're open and you don't win enough football games, it gets thrown back in your face. I mean, how many times did we have how many times did it come up this year of like, where's the chasing three? Well, I can tell you how many times. It's 6 after every time they lost. It's like, where's the chasing three? You don't do a chasing three after you lost? That's stupid.
Nope.
Nope. So you open yourself up to that.
Yeah, I don't think we'll get and they didn't do a chasing three after the Pinstripe Bowl. I don't think we'll get as much locker room speeches. I don't think we'll get as much of the the practice field speeches. He's more comfortable than most coaches are with that, but I think all coaches have a part of their personality that is just guarded against everyone seeing that. And I think Rhule felt that it was necessary for him to show that more in the first couple of years of building this thing at Nebraska than it will be in the long term going forward. So we'll see. Perhaps I'm reading him wrong, but that's just the feeling that I get. So on Wednesday, I got the chance to go out in the morning to Boys Town and visit with Charlie McBride, the former legendary Nebraska defensive coordinator, who is in town, as we mentioned a few minutes ago, to receive, or maybe we didn't mention this a few minutes ago, to receive the Tom Osborne Legacy Award. So this is part of the Outland Trophy Banquet presentation. So McBride is now 85 years old, which, hey, Charlie is moving around well, looking good. And I talked to him a little bit, and I hope our listeners are interested in this. We can move on from it quickly, but I want to see what you think. I talked to him a little bit this morning about why he retired at the age of 60, which is the same age that Osborne retired. And, Charlie was at the top of his game in 1999. He believes that was the best defense that he had. It was year 2 with Frank Solich in charge, but McBride said he had bad knees. He needed both knees replaced. He had to have a hip replaced, a shoulder replaced. Like, it was almost like he'd been playing football for 23 years while coordinating the defense, and knowing the way that he coached, there was a little bit of truth to that. And he never considered getting back into it. He did reminisce about his last couple of years, and he told me this story about. I asked him, "Did you have a similar situation to Osborne where you considered or you decided well in advance that you were going to retire, and then just kind of kept it a secret from everybody until the end?" And he said, "Actually, in 1997, I went into Osborne's office and told him that was it. I was done. I didn't have anything more to give. I was going to retire. This was the end for me." And Charlie was 58 at the time. And Osborne said, "You can't do that because I'm retiring." And so he convinced Charlie to stick around for one more year which ended up becoming 2 more years because in 98, Nebraska was 9-4, and that was like the sky falling. First time in 30 years that Nebraska had lost more than 3 games. So he stuck around for 99. Had a great year that year. Steve Warren was a big piece up front for Nebraska on defense. You had Mike Brown and Ralph Brown in the back, and they played Texas twice, split with Texas. Otherwise, Nebraska probably wins the national championship in 99. I think it was the best team at the end. Midway through that season, Connor, he went into Frank Solich's office and said, "Hey, this is it. Like, I was going to retire 2 years ago. I'm definitely doing it now. So get your next defensive coordinator ready." And then a couple of days before the Fiesta Bowl, Nebraska played Tennessee that year in the Fiesta Bowl. Charlie went up to Frank and said, "Hey, remember, this is my last game."
Yeah.
And Frank said, "What?" He pretended or acted as if he did not remember their conversation from early in the year, but to no avail. Charlie left after that. After he went out on top after that Fiesta Bowl.
Nice. What a fantastic story. It's I mean, I never heard that going into Osborne's office and saying, "Hey, well, hang on, you can't leave because I'm leaving." Like, that's how the news was broken to Charlie McBride that Tom Osborne was retiring in 1997.
Exactly. And there have been so many documentaries and books written and movies made about that time in Nebraska football history. And we as Nebraskans, probably to a fault, like, revel in the 90s. People outside of Nebraska would say, yeah, way too much to a fault. And that's, interestingly, at least the down to the details of that is not something that I've ever really heard explained.
Yeah, fascinating. And then, of course, the whole unraveling of, like, you could trace all of it back, obviously, to that, and that's when it sort of starts. And one by one, piece by piece, and then we end up 25 years later, 30 years later, here we are.
Osborne was he was adamant. You could say even heavy-handed with his assistants when he retired, and wanting those guys who had been with him for a long time to stick around with Solich. And you had veterans like McBride and George Darlington, who coached the secondary, and Dan Young, who was the special teams and offensive line, and Milt Teneper, who was the offensive line, who stuck with Frank. And ultimately, it didn't end well for any of them. Frank made changes that had an entirely new staff by 2003. So when McBride stepped aside after that 99 season, things really did change within the just kind of the culture of the Nebraska football program. And like you said, a lot of that, brick by brick, you taking it apart.
Yeah.
That's where you can get back to that from where Nebraska is at right now.
All right. In our final segment early in the show, we talked about how Matt Rhule is, picks his spots where he's outspoken and where he's not. One thing he has been outspoken about: Ty Robinson's draft stock. Let's talk about that next. All right, guys. Well, therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and help you communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace is the leading virtual therapy provider, and it makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs. Usually, you can do that within 48 hours, and it's convenient. Sessions from the comfort of your home, and you can even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize mental health. As a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege. Once again, Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege, and enter the promo code SPACE80 to match with a licensed therapist today. Go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege and enter promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and to show your support for the show. That's Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege, promo code SPACE80. All right, welcome back. Final segment here of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Ty Robinson, let's bring him into focus here real quick. Matt Rhule is adamant the entire year. I don't know how he doesn't go in the first round. I don't know how people aren't talking about Ty Robinson as a first round pick. Now we're starting to get into draft, all-star games and combines and camps and things like this. Do you think there's a possibility that could actually happen, Mitch?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think there's probably 45 to 50 players right now on the board who have a shot to land in those positions, and maybe even you might even be including in that 45 to 50 like one or two that we're not even talking about. So there's like 45 to 50 spots right now with players who are going to be in contention for first round picks at some time between now and the draft, based on how they perform in the Senior Bowl, how they perform in other all-star games, what happens at the combine. I definitely think Ty Robinson is, there have been some instances in recent years where Nebraska's been snubbed. Nebraska players have been snubbed at the combine, and you just kind of shake your head and you look at the list of players who do get an invite and you go, how did that guy not get one? That's not going to happen with Ty Robinson. Like, he's going to the combine. I think Thomas Fidone, as a result of his Senior Bowl invite, is also going to go to the combine. If I think it can happen. Like, I'd probably put him like as a bit of an outlier right now in that first round conversation, like a dark horse. But yeah, I think it could happen. And like, I really do think that it would mean something significant for Nebraska, just because it's been so long. 2011 was Prince Amukamara's first round draft. That was the last Nebraska player drafted in the first round.
I believe that's right. Yeah. I don't know. I just like Ty Robinson is going to be a productive NFL player. Like, I think he's probably, he could be a starter in the NFL. Right.
Yeah.
But I just like those kind of players just don't get drafted in the first round. Like, if there's a team at the back end of the first round who's like, yeah, we need a guy who's going to give us a whole bunch of snaps and, he's not necessarily going to be a game wrecker at the NFL level, but we'll give you solid production probably for a long time. Yeah, I think Ty Robinson's your guy. I just don't think that type of player goes in the first round usually. Now
you mean like his position or like, now he's not like a blow up the offensive line kind of guy. Like, he's not Ndamukong Suh. You're
looking for a higher ceiling. That's what I'm saying. Like, and I think Ty's ceiling is relatively high, but it's not like, a lot of times you're in the first round. You're kind of looking for a lottery ticket, that kind of thing. Like, all right, we got a really good player. He's done a lot in college, but the upside is really why we're drafting him. Like, I just think the upside is limited with Ty.
He's not Aaron Donald. Like, he's not Aiden Hutchinson. So, and those are the kind of guys where, those are top of the first round type picks. That's why I think like there's a different kind of expectation for somebody who goes like around 30th in the draft than there is, of course, for players who go in the top 4, 5, or 6. And I think it's going to come down to who's drafting at the end. Well, I think we know who's drafting at the end. It's the teams playing this weekend. And is there going to be a need for a guy who's 6'6", 310 pounds, has long arms, is good in the against the run, very good against the run, is good in getting his hands up and being able to bat down passes. We've seen him do that. He could definitely give you something on special teams, being somebody who plays on the line. Like, he's a versatile player. I don't think he's going to play fullback in the NFL like he did at times in his senior year at Nebraska, but like just the willingness for Ty to do that kind of thing, and like how much Matt Rhule talked about, hey, Ty Robinson is a guy who could and maybe should opt out of the Pinstripe Bowl, but there's no way, like in his mind, there's no way that he's going to do that. Like, those things, those intangible factors, they also, I think, help him and might be enough to lift his stock to a place where one of these teams that's playing in a championship game this weekend says, yeah, like, look, we don't need someone to walk in on day one and be a starting defensive tackle. Like, we're looking for depth pieces who can eventually become productive NFL starting defensive linemen, and he might be a perfect fit for one of them.
Yeah, I agree. And I just don't know, like, I don't know if he has NFL star written all over him. you could put this on the draft highlight or on the Hall of Fame tape when he goes to the Hall of Fame. Just say, I don't know if he has star upside. Just me, Connor Happer, saying this right now on this podcast, but that's just my view on it right now.
All right, let's finish with some conversation about Nebraska basketball. So, 4 in a row. That's where the streak's at. Nebraska has not won since it beat UCLA in Lincoln a couple weekends ago. Who's coming in on Wednesday night? It's the Bruins' partner in crime. They're in LA. Also, USC tonight, 8 p.m., Big Ten Network. Do we call this a must-win for Nebraska?
We do. I don't really even hesitate much. Just when you think about what Nebraska has ahead of them at this point, like the math starts to get really hard for you. They're 2-5 before the USC game. So let's just game it out, right? Let's say they lose. You go to 2-6 in the league. You go to Wisconsin on Sunday. You got Illinois. Then you got to go to Oregon next weekend. I mean, those are 3 really hard games in a row.
The schedule does turn a little bit after that, right?
Yeah. With and Washington on the road. I mean, that's no gimme. Ohio State and Maryland at home, like those are games that you're probably going to have at this point. But just the further you get down this line, the harder it is to dig yourself out. That's the plight for Nebraska right now. So yeah, I think it's pretty imperative that they win this game because all of a sudden it really starts working against you if you slide down to, if you're looking at 2-9, in the league, if you're looking at 2-8 in the like, there's no chance for you to get back to 500, and that's
I think
that's what everybody thinks you have to be to get to the tournament.
I think there's a certain sentiment that like no game is a must win unless it's do or die, and you could always say, hey, they could they could lose this game and then win out from February on all the way through the Big Ten tournament. It's like, okay, like, yeah, they could also win the national championship in April, but like, these are not the realistic conversations that, that we're attempting to engage in here. Like if the season is going to play out in any kind of like a normal, realistic way beyond this point, this is a game that Nebraska has to get. There's a big difference between Nebraska going into the Wisconsin game on the road at 3-5 versus 2-6. It's a big one. Like must win. Like, all right, it's semantics. Is it not? No, the season is not over if Nebraska loses tonight. They're going to continue to play. They're not cashing it in, but yeah, they need to win this game. One other thing about this game that I want to mention, on the USC roster, senior forward St. Thomas is averaging 11-6 for the Trojans in his first year in the Big Ten. So this is a storyline that I heard Gary and Matt on your station discussing on Wednesday morning, Connor, while you were in the Friendly Skies. And it's come up a lot, I think, in the basketball community around the state of Nebraska, is just how great of a season a bunch of players who played high school basketball in the city of Omaha are having around the country. And obviously that conversation starts with Hunter Salas at Wake Forest and with Chucky Hepburn at Louisville, but it does not end there at all. And there's John Tanji at Wisconsin, who's having he's from Omaha Central, who's having a fantastic year. And then one of Salas's teammates, there are others, but one of Salas's teammates is St. Thomas, who, like I said, is putting up pretty good numbers for USC.
Yeah. I mean, Will Kyle for UCLA, he's been beat up a little bit this year. He went to Bellevue West. I mean, that was another guy, Frankie Fiddler, who,
don't forget Frankie,
spent a lot of time at Omaha, and now is at Michigan State. So it really is. It's crazy to think back to those guys 4 or 5 years ago, right around COVID. I'll never forget actually doing the 2020 state championship game between Bellevue West and Millard North, because there was nobody there, and it was the last sporting event that would happen for several months. Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. It was surreal.
The only thing that hadn't been canceled, the NCAA tournament had been canceled at that point, and that game was still going on.
Like, I think it took up like 6 out of the top 10 on Sports Center that night. There was like 2 games that were anything.
Was that the last Chucky Hunter meeting, or were they juniors that year?
That would have been there may have been one more after that.
21 was the last one. I don't know. We'll have to look that up and discuss this topic at another time. But it's really interesting, and it doesn't have to be a conversation about how Nebraska's not recruiting well in the city of Omaha. It's clearly not. The Huskers have clearly missed on all kinds of players. Amari Bynum, the latest, the former Omaha Bryan player who is in this senior class. He's at a prep school in Missouri. I believe he's going to Ohio State. Am I correct on that one? But there's examples of players that Nebraska's seeing in the Big Ten, saw Chucky in the Big Ten. You would hope that the Huskers could. I'm not even going to do it. I'm not going to go down that road. Like, let's just enjoy St. Thomas coming into formerly of Loyola in Chicago, coming into Lincoln tonight and being able to enjoy some visits with family members and friends.
And the Must Bus. People will be good and fired up because Eric Musselman will be there and he'll be wanting to take his shirt off at whatever.
You could get away with that at Arkansas. I don't know how USC will look upon that.
Yeah, I haven't seen the release of the shirt quite yet this year, so we'll see.
Yeah. All right, we got you through another episode. Thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Big Ten podcast. Craig puts the Big Ten first. Find Locked On Big Ten on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.